Welcome, team. Very excited today to have a great friend of mine, Justin Horo.
Knowlesy.
Great to have you here, mate. We talked about doing this a long time ago, but you're too busy doing that much stuff now.
No, I'm not, mate. Yeah, I've been watching your content. I'm doing a similar thing with Willie at levels and enjoying the podcast journey, mate. So I've been watching some of your content, some people that I know, some people that I don't know.
You'd know a heap of the guests we've had on here.
Seen Mortsy. You said Timmy Manor before. Even Ivan, watching guys that I don't know personally, but I've really intrigued by their story and enjoy watching them on the potty, mate. So thanks for having me.
The Ivan Cleary one
was awesome.
It's possibly the most listened to one.
Yep.
There's an old one with Wayne Bennett that goes really well.
I haven't seen the Wayne one.
Yeah, because it wasn't on video.
Okay.
It's just on the audio from years ago. But yeah, that's great that you actually listen. I knew you would anyway because you love that stuff. Like you've always been from what I remember, very intrigued in learning from different people, and you know a lot about a lot of things. You know a lot about a lot of sports, I've noticed. The American sports you know way too much about. I used to go, how can this guy know so much? Where do you find time to know so much about NFL, NBA, baseball, basketball? Like, how do you anyway?
Yeah, it's funny. The passion for the American sport started with Dad. When I was younger, we used to collect basketball cards. So Dad used to have this thing for me where, if I had a good game of footy, I'd get a packet of basketball cards. There used to be, so we're out in Penrith here. Well, this is very nostalgic being out here. My junior rugby league was out here playing for Cambridge Park across the road from where we're filming this podcast, which is cool as well. But I grew up out here, Western Sydney, St. Clair, and there was a basketball card shop in St. Mary's. And we used to go there, collect basketball cards. And, if I scored a try or if I did something, pretty good, made a few tackles, Dad would buy me a packet of basketball cards. So my love, that was like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, the first, three-peat that they had. And then from then on, I've just been, a lover of the sport, and then that filtered onto NFL. And when you look at it now and the access that we've got, and then we'll talk about him, I'm sure, but an ex-teammate of mine and a player you coach with Jarryd going overseas, and then it's just blown up ever since. So it's huge here now in Australia, but it never used to be as big when I was sort of a little bit younger.
I wonder if you've just mentioned Jarryd Hayne. I wonder if people would give him the credit for that, like you just did, how much that game has blown up over here. That'd be interesting because I remember going over and visiting him in San Francisco. That was crazy that time. You went over as well.
Yeah.
I went into a sports store in San Francisco down on the pier, and you walked in there and there was one whole wall of Steph Curry, and then there was one whole wall of Jarryd Hayne, 38. And then the rest of the shop was just all these other superstar jerseys and sports and whatever, but he was huge, and I don't think he ever got any commission on all those sales as well. But that was huge, and you're so right. Like the game here now is much bigger thanks to him. Yeah, we'll definitely go back to him. Just to intro to the listeners, the connection here with Hoz. I loved working with you, mate, back in the day at the Eels. My memory of you was you just kept chipping away. You were such a good teammate that players eventually were like, hey, we want him in the team. And I remember you were playing reserve grade for Wentworthville.
Yep.
Yeah, but you trained full time.
Yep.
And it just got to a point where it was like, we've got to pick this guy. And we were having such a great run there in 2009. Daniel Anderson was coaching. And you come really close a couple of times in 2009. And I mean, that was back on Hainesy. That was that crazy year. Crazy year.
There's no other year or player or team that's done anything like that. That run was unbelievable. And even just to, be around the boys all year round.
Yeah.
That's what, you started to get the taste for it. Like, imagine if I could be a part of this.
So then the following year you were.
Yep.
You debuted in round 3 the following year. And so my memory was you just kept hustling away, just kept chipping away. And now I love following your journey since you finished, because I always love seeing old players we've had that just go on and do good things in so many different areas. But I've loved following your journey, but I also feel it's followed the same process. Like you've chipped away, you've worked hard. And now in this media space, I feel it's ready to go boom for you. Like your podcast you do with Willie Mason is huge. It gets enormous listenership, and but you've also doing some stuff on radio where when you're commenting on the game so well, like it's a very intelligent level of commentary that is valuable. It's almost priceless, but it's getting to a point where you're ready to go boom. And then you also do this show, the podcast about the American sports.
Yeah.
Which again, it just blows my mind how you can be so knowledgeable about all that. But you've told me, like, it's even influenced from your dad back in the day collecting basketball cards.
Yeah.
So I love all those stories, mate. I want to find out your influences in your life, and basically my podcast, mate, is to deliver little nuggets of gold out there, little lessons that may help accelerate the career of someone else.
Yeah.
It could be a coach, a player, a teacher, a business person, an entrepreneur like yourself, you know? So I'm really interested where this chat will go. I'm sure we're going to drop a lot of names. We've already dropped Jarryd Hayne. We have to probably dig a bit deeper there.
Jarryd and Willie Mason already.
We've
so there's
Willie
a couple
already.
Of big ones.
So by the end of this episode, we could be catching names everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, why don't we start? Is that a fair observation and memory I have of you? Like, is that how you feel your career went?
For sure. It's a funny story. So when I first got to Parramatta, it was actually Hagues. Michael Hayden was the coach, remember?
Yeah.
And I was doing some stuff. I had a year where it didn't go, a couple of years in the 20s at the Roosters, and it sort of didn't work out. Didn't play rep footy a lot growing up. Got an opportunity at Para. That's the last proper year of Premier League before it transitioned over to New South Wales Cup, and then that's when they started lining teams. And I'd been plying away there for a couple of years and sort of just didn't get a feeling that, I was Ando's guy, Daniel Anderson, who ended up debuting me. And then I had a conversation about, I guess my story is a lot about perseverance.
Yeah.
And there is some stuff that, even with the media stuff now, where I picked up little bits from a lot of people. I don't have like a specific thing from a specific coach, but I was very observant. I feel like I was really pretty good at reading people, and you talk about the likability and stuff like that, being authentic to who I was, and just understanding that I had my own journey and that I was going through my own journey. You learn heaps more as you get older, and you start to realize, like, especially being at 4 different professional clubs, and now getting into media, you see little bits that you might not realize at the time, but you're picking them up. The one reason I love doing this is, and I stoked to be on with you, Knowles, is because I picked stuff from you and Kat and that for sure. And the one thing I loved about our relationship was I was a guy that, wasn't a star player ever throughout my career, but, we had a chat about this before. Never felt that energy from you. It's not like, you treated me any different than you did Jarryd or Nathan Highmarsh or Nathan Kalis. Yeah. So that's one thing that always resonated with me about you. And then I'd like to think that I took a lot of that. Like some of the stuff that I remember early on wasn't stuff that people told me, but how they acted.
Yeah.
Like Tamana Tahu was huge. I remember watching Tamana when he first got back to Para, and the way he sort of looked after younger players. And he was, I watched him on TV and, was a bit starstruck when he come into the into the playing group and just watching how he interacted with the younger players. And I always try to take that and make sure, like, if I ever get in a position where, you know, I'm in a senior role, I want players to feel like that around me and be able to communicate. So, it's and with the media stuff now, doing it with Willie, the reason I think our dynamic works so well is because he can give the experience and the observations from a star player, Origin, Clive Churchill's grand finalist, and I'm the locker room journeyman, you know. Had to get every little bit of talent out so we can give two, you know, different perspectives, but we also think alike in a way as well.
Yeah. So where did the relationship start with Willie?
Manly. He come to Manly in 2015. He had his final year in the NRL. We got along really well because we had mutual friends in Willie Tonga and Rennie, who were at Para, and Rennie was there from halfway through 11, and then Willie Tonga coming in 2012. So those two guys sort of took me under their wing a little bit because we lost a lot of senior players around the time that you left as well. Nath retired in 10. Hindy and Birdie were retiring. And you know, Rennie and Willie had just come to the club, so I got along with those guys pretty well. Spent a bit of time with Mace.
We are name dropping.
Yeah. So he rocks up in 15, and then I went to France to Catalan Dragons, and then after about 10 games, he come over as well, and then that's when he officially retired. So we spent almost 2 years together, me and Willie.
I dare say there's some fun times towards the end there, and in France. But you mentioned Willie Tonga. I caught up with Willie last week. I bumped him. So I bumped you at the airport last week going to watch Jai Opatea fight. There's a name. We'll have to talk about Jai.
Yeah.
I get up there and I bump into Willie Tonga. Now, I wasn't there when you had your experience with Willie late in his career. I was at the start of his career in the early 2000s, and it was so good to see him. And I have arranged for him to come on this podcast. So I'm glad we just mentioned his name. So, Willie, if you're listening, remember you told me you're coming down. So he's doing some great things now.
He's doing really well.
He's coaching some kids. He's doing stuff like he's getting in and helping disadvantaged kids. Like, he's doing some really good stuff. So you mentioned some really good names there. Willie, what a character. Like, I've had little experiences with Willie over time. Obviously, a lot of mutual friends.
Yep.
And the energy he brings, like he brings on your podcast, the energy he brings when he comes into a room or a team. So Wayne Bennett loved him. So I worked with Wayne.
Still close with him.
Yeah, I worked with Wayne in the All-Stars camps, and we'd bring Willie in, and Willie would just bring that energy, you know. And then I was doing a bit with Wayne his first year at Newcastle.
Yep.
And he said to me one day, I think I'm going to get Willie Mason. I said, why are you going to do that? And he goes, mate, I just want a bit of character, you know. So because every team needs certain roles. Like, there's all those different roles that need to be played in a team. But having that guy, that character in a team as well, and that energy that he just brings becomes infectious. And I'm sure if people remember when he went up to Newcastle, like, there's vision of him on the sideline and there's vision of him in games. Like, just there's an energy about him that you want in every team.
That mic'd up.
You know? Yeah, the mic'd up
that he did. I think it was one of the first, and it's easily the best.
Yeah.
He's calling out the Dragons pack. He's talking to the referees, telling them, because now with the content that we do, it comes up a fair bit.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, he was he can control a room for sure.
Yeah. And then, like, there's a side of him too that you need a few mad players in every team.
Yeah.
You have to have them, but there's also a side, there's a serious footy side to him that I hear come out sometimes where he knows what a team needs. He knows about working hard. He knows the type of characters you need in a team to win. And yeah, you and him have a great little chemistry there on your show. I love all the little shorts that pop out everywhere. Like, the social media shorts go crazy for you guys, don't they?
Yeah, look, it's funny because one of the most popular that we've done over the last couple of years involves you.
Right.
We'll talk.
I know the one.
It's the Willie talking about his time in All-Star camp. And you said, I remember the drill.
Yeah.
You used to set it up, 4 corners. We start on the side. You sort of run to the other corner, and then you meet through the middle, and you got to beat someone one-on-one.
Yeah.
And that's when Willie got introduced to a guy called Shaun Johnson.
Shaun Johnson.
So that clip, is blown up for us.
Has it really?
Yeah. That's gone really big, and there's different.
My son told me about it first because my son must follow your page.
Yeah,
and he laughed because he said, I don't know, Willie said something about, Hayden Knowles would have filmed it or something, like that. Yeah. He filmed everything. Or
you still got the footage.
Yeah, I remember the day because in those camps, right, like there's some drills you do as coaches where they are technical, they are detailed. There's a lot of detail in the game, as you know. But I never forget when I first started those All-Stars camp, Wayne Bennett's first instruction to me was, your job this week is to make it an environment that players want to come back to every year.
Yeah. It was the first ever one, wasn't it?
It was a new concept, yeah. So he said, every player needs to go back to their clubs and say how good it was in camp. And so whatever you do, whatever drills you do, so there was a side to that drill that was actually deliberate. Obviously, working on agility, it's working on defensive agility. You had to have your feet in the right spot. The attack, there's a bit of freedom to it as well, and there was a lot of play. It was like a kid's game, but doesn't matter if they're full-blown elite level adults or a 10-year-old kid, that drill will bring out a competitiveness in people.
Yep.
And it develops skills that in a freedom style of way, that it's not structured and drilled. You must step here to step here to step there. There's a lot of freedom to it. It was like playing in the backyard, you know? But I'll never forget it. It was like Shaun Johnson was next level. And the staff just wanted the drill to keep going. So usually you have a training plan and, right, I would do 4 minutes of this and 6 minutes of that.
Little blocks.
Yeah. But it was that good. We just wanted to keep watching Shaun Johnson. So, and I never pull a camera out in training. Like I'd never pull the phone out in training. But the media guy was there. His name was Adam Gardini.
Yeah.
You actually, in that video, you hear him laugh. I said, Adam, get over here, roll this camera for me, like just his phone. And Willie just happens to land Shaun Johnson as his opponent, and we knew what was going to happen, but it was that good, mate.
Yeah.
And then the following year, or a year or two later, Shaun Johnson with the same left foot step against England in a dying minutes of to try to make
the World Cup to go into the final. And he does that same step, and I've seen that before. That drill was made for Shaun Johnson.
It was. We might as well rename it.
Yeah.
SJ.
You should call
SJ
it the
drill.
SJ. I'm going to say, let's go to the SJ for 5 minutes.
That's it. But Willie was great in those camps, and
he was made for those camps.
Yeah.
Willie's like the way, you sort of go into it, it's, you're going to be ultra competitive still, but if Wayne wanted to have some fun, then Willie's your perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great.
Sort of big dog.
SJ. So, geez, I just keep having all these memories. So then I eventually get the chance to work with Steve McNamara at the Roosters.
Yep.
Steve McNamara was the England coach.
Yeah.
And
I had Steve McNamara at the back end of Catalan Dragons.
Did you?
Yeah.
So Steve McNamara tells me I was 10 seconds off being awarded an MBE or whatever I was nearly knighted as the England coach, you know? We were about to make the World Cup final, and then Shaun Johnson does that to me, and when he told me that story, I just thought of Willie Mason and him in All-Stars camp. But yeah, there's so many things we could go off there, but I always am thinking, how is this helping a listener if they're into coaching, teaching, training or whatever?
Yep. And
I hope even that story delivers a little piece of Wayne Bennett wisdom there. Like your job, in particular if you're coaching juniors, is make sure they love.
Well, that's why, the bits that I've taken from you, Knowles, as well, and we can just jump off the back of that, is, there's so many things as I've got older, like, oh, yeah, that really worked. And the one part that I remember with my time with you at Parramatta, it was always a fun environment. It was competitive. There was a lot of game simulated stuff that I loved doing, and that stuck with me all the way through. I never lost that competitiveness.
Yeah.
So, when I first got there, my dad had that core in me when I was younger where, we're going to compete.
Yeah.
But it was, you could still have fun and compete too.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I remember from, spending some time under you is, even though it was a game, we want to win the game. We want to win the drill. We want to, you want to Sean Johnson and put someone on show in the best possible way.
Well, you can see someone's character in a lot of these games.
Yeah.
You obviously see it. We did some other crazy things to test your character, whether it be in a boxing ring or running a hill or whatever. There's other ways you see people's character, but in those games, you also see it.
Yeah. I've got a funny story. Remind me about Mitch Allgood in the boxing after this.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
You see people's character. You see who wants the ball with 10 seconds to go. Just names just coming to my head now. It was the first time I watched Joey Manu train at the Roosters. He was a young kid. He's about 18. They were just playing a game of offside touch, Everyone plays it. It was 10 seconds to go and his team was down, and it was probably one of his first ever times in a full-time squad. Just give me the ball. Just get me the ball. And he just went bang, 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 and just did something crazy. So on that was my first impression of Joey Manu.
Yeah.
And I've loved him ever since.
Yeah.
Now he's in Japan earning millions.
Yeah.
Joey, if you're on, let's do a potty.
Got to get Joey.
Yeah, let's get him on.
He doesn't do many potties too.
We might have to talk. Maybe we do a joint one with him.
I remember I had a chat to him. Pardon me. Might have been about 3 or 4 years ago. And this is when I was doing guest stuff. Now and more so, if you don't follow my journey, it's more me and Willie just talking about the game, observing it. But yeah, I did guess a couple of years ago, and I hit him up, and he's like, "It's not really my thing," in the most polite way.
Yeah,
but
right.
I'd imagine you'd have to have I didn't have any relationship with him outside of seeing him at a couple of dues with other players, and he's obviously done really well. Seems like the one time that I did meet him, just a really good, humble kid from New Zealand. And it looks like he's always, he's held that all the way through. You can tell the way that people that speak about someone else. And I haven't heard a bad word about Joey Manu.
No, he's a beauty, mate. Maybe if we bring him on, we'll send the potty to the Japanese listeners that are all over him at the moment.
Yeah.
I hope he comes back to rugby league one day.
Yeah, so do I.
I just loved working with him. I know his teammates love him and love watching him, eh? Yeah. But yeah, you see the character in blokes. There's a young kid I fell in love with watching him the other day playing the old scrap soccer game. You know that game I love where it's like soccer but you're diving on balls.
Yeah.
Did we used to play that? I'm not sure if I played that with you. But anyway, I saw this young kid just diving on loose ball after loose ball after loose ball, and I know he's going to have a good career if that's one of the things he really values. It might sound simple, but I value that stuff. They're not little to me; they're actually massive things. But you see it in the games. You see it. You see someone's character for that. So
one of the I wouldn't call it a game. Something you implemented during a weight session was, our grip and footy, and we used to have that game where if you can throw a footy around in the gym, but if it hits the deck, you got to go do
You're on the rower.
You got to do the rower. You got to do the bike. And I remember me and Haynes used to. We were, weights partners there for a while, and we used to always try to test each other. and he would obviously test me way more and try to throw passes out wide because he wanted me to do the roll, but just enough where I could get it.
Yeah.
And it's just those little things that were like little competitive games within the games and within sessions that, that's always stuck with me as well.
There'd be gym coaches that would be falling off their chair listening to that. There'd be no way would they have a football in the gym.
Yeah.
But there was a theme to that the ball was gold.
Yeah.
The ball, possession of the ball was priority that week or that month, whatever it was.
Yeah.
There was a theme to it about that ball's not to touch the ground or else you get on the rower.
And it's different from a normal gym too.
Yeah,
There's 10 of us in there at a time.
Yeah.
So you're not throwing it while someone else is doing snatch or anything like that. You're in your own little pockets.
Yeah.
And
practicing your grip. Your
let's have a bit of
I
fun
remember
with-
you and him. You would throw these massive passes from one end of the gym to the next. Yeah. You had a good relationship with Hainesy. You understood him. You knew him. You actually probably got the best out of him as well, believe it or not. Like I used to use other players to help coach him.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know it. You wouldn't even know it.
Like you telling me, yeah, I sort of have a feeling I know where you're going to go with it though. Yeah.
Like I knew, obviously because I got to know him and wanted to learn about his story, I knew that he idolised Tamana Tahu growing up. So the first time I brought him in to the full-time squad, I asked Tamana Tahu to go and do one-on-one work with Hainesy.
Yeah.
Tamana was giving him the same message that I wanted to give him, but I just, that was the way I tried to work with Hainesy. And then
your vessel. Tamana was getting the message through to him that you wanted to get through to Hainesy.
Yeah, because I knew he idolised him, he looked up to him, and Hainesy had a lot of respect for you too. And, you know, there'd be other people that would probably want to, you know, really come down hard on Hainesy's gym training ethic, right?
Yeah.
But in a weird way, you got it done. You worked out a way. Like I've had arguments with other players who used to get frustrated in Hainesy's approach to training.
Yeah, I remember them. I remember some of those ones,
But I felt like I understood him more. So it's a hard one when you're coaching it. When in a team where everyone should be doing the same thing and whatever, it's very hard. But when you got someone as gifted as Jarryd, the argument I used to say to players, so let's say Nathan Hindmarsh, right?
Yeah.
He was a leader of that team and he was old school, work hard, all that.
Yeah.
Country boy, farmer, just top. Everyone knows what Hindy was like as a player.
Yeah.
Hindy's extras would be get on the rower, go run some hills, go and run, make more tackles, whatever. Like Hindy's extras were that. But I used to say to him, mate, do you understand when Jarryd goes home, he studies about 3 hours of film? Or do you understand that he'll go and do a Pilates session? Or do you know that he's going really detailed on his diet at the moment? Or he'd have his weird ways, Jarryd. He would have some funny, weird ways, but he had this ability. I mean, you only have to look what he did when he went to the NFL, how he had to learn a whole playbook. Like Jarryd had this ability, the way he would study things and look at things that I guarantee Hindy wasn't doing when he got home. But it's hard for people to understand that because they always looked at the hard work, you know. So let's say we're doing some fitness work and Hainesy's coming last. But then if I put a one-on-one contest, he would beat you. He would not lose. In whatever you asked him to compete in, if there was a competition, he wouldn't lose. But if it was just run up and down the field, if Hainesy thought it was pointless, he'd come last and he wouldn't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was always juggling how to get the best out of him while also explaining to these older boys, like, your job's to get the best out of him too. But I used to do it via you. You didn't even know it. But you should take a bit of credit for Hainesy's year. There was in 09.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking about some of the things now, like the dust up that they nearly had in the gym was funny. Like I remember a lot, and I won't get into details because that's probably for Jarryd and Nate and Hindy to tell, but they nearly had a dust up where I had to get in between pretty much and just, you know, sort of de-escalate the situation. But the perfect example of what you're talking about with Hainesy, and I think he's even more, like I said, because I love all sports and it's becoming – team environment's huge, but individualization is huge now too. People understanding what they do best, and being in, you know, position specific as well these days, where you work on sort of what serves you the best. In a way, you've got to find happy medium with doing everything as a team, but also, I guess his stint over in the States was a perfect example of that. But one of my favorite Jarryd stories is we're playing a team in maybe 11 or 12, and he tells Geordie Atkins to go in for a scoot. Geordie Atkins was a winger who'd come from Gold Coast. He won everything. He won all the park runs. We used to do it. Oh, where was the place we were talking about before? Parra Park, and the other one.
Was it called Lake Illawarra?
Lake Illawarra.
Yeah.
So he was the king of that.
Yeah.
As fit as a fiddle. So we used to call him Cool and Gutter Gold.
Yeah.
That was his nickname because he was, the marathon runner, the triathlon, all that sort of stuff. And he told Geordie to go in for a scoot, and Jordan Atkins couldn't get there. His ass was hanging out. He was tired.
Yeah.
And Hainesy scooped up the ball in the one sort of breath because, he goes, Cool and Gutter Gold can win all the park runs, but when it comes to footy, he can't back it up. I was playing centres. Geordie was I might have been playing the ball. I was around the area.
Yeah.
And and they had a bit of a pile up on the field. But I remember just laughing about that because, like you said, some of the training drills, just nowhere to be seen at the back or park runs. But how he's taken the 65th minute, he's playing Origin against the best Queensland team of all time, and he's having his 20th carry.
Yeah.
And he's busting them straight through the middle.
Yeah.
And you're like, how I still whatever he did, that he must have been doing stuff away, like you said, that was working on his body, or he just had that something inside him that was different from other people, because how that person who's, struggled to do 300 minutes on a roll or might be at the back of a 100-meter sprint when he's the fastest in the team and we're doing 20 of them. He could, if it was just one effort, he would beat everyone. But like I said, that example of, when he played those Queensland teams and they finally broke through, and he was just New South Wales best for 5 years in a row or whatever it was. It's crazy.
Yeah, mate. He that ability I talk about, if you think, can you imagine you've never played high school football, you've never played college football, I'm talking American football. Can you imagine you've never played it? And somehow you had to go into that system and learn a playbook. And the position he was playing, the playbook's a lot bigger than others.
Sure.
That's back then people were saying it was impossible. It was impossible. Some of the expert comments that were saying if pigs could fly or whatever, just stupid stuff. It's impossible for this to happen, and he actually did it. The ability he had to study that playbook and put resources around him. So one of his resources was his body and his skill, obviously, but he had to learn what to do. He had to surround himself with people and knowledge and learn. It was like he described it to me once. He said, Hayden, some of the playbooks are let's say you want to be a doctor, you want to be a GP, you study this. But you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, you study this one. He described his playbook like the orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah.
So I went with him. I don't know if you remember, but yes, you do. Yeah, we shot some content and stuff before he left. He rang me one day and he said, you better get to Parramatta Leagues Club. I'm going to announce something and bring your cameraman. So I turned up. He announces, drops a bomb on Parramatta, says, I'm going to the NFL. And I just thought, my God, this is what a sacrifice. He's just thrown away this contract, just thrown away $1 million.
Was it at the end of 13?
13, yeah.
Yeah, it was,
13,
wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was no longer at Parramatta, but obviously very close with him. And he said, bring your cameraman. And remember that doco we said we're going to shoot? Let's go. So we does the press conference. Someone from Parramatta come over to me and said, if you've had anything to do with this, we will get you. That's what this bloke said to me. I won't say his name.
Yeah.
That's what he said to me. And I was like, what? If you can't keep him, this has got nothing to do with me. But they heard that I was going to the Roosters, and that they, in their twisted mind, they thought I had something to do with it to get him to the Roosters.
He's at the peak of his powers too at this point, isn't he?
And I just thought, what evidence of showing how much you really want to do something that you'd sacrifice a whole, a big contract. He was possibly the highest paid.
Yeah.
jumped on the plane with him, mate, and he starts studying vision. He starts studying. He's watching routes on an iPad on the way. We get there, we go to Target, we buy a football, we go to the park, and he starts, me, the cameraman, and one of his mates, he starts telling us, hey, I'm about to do this run. Can one of you guys throw me a ball? Like that's how amateur this was. We went to this local park. There's kids over there playing baseball. It was just this little park. And to think that he then, right, this is what I need to do. I need to find a coach. I need to find people that can teach me. We need to sign up. We went down to Exos, this gym in LA. I need to sign up there, but I want to sign a confidentiality agreement that they can't release anything that I'm here. No one's to know I'm here. We're doing no media. We're blocking out everyone. We're just locking in. Just locking in. Then, obviously, the story was huge. We're driving around one day, and he was getting phone calls from general managers of big clubs. And he said, Hayden, pretend you're my manager. Answer this. So I'm taking calls with GMs of NFL clubs. Hey, like, we were just wondering, can we be the first to meet Jarryd? And, like, we want to have a look first. And Jarryd's like, no. You tell them when I'm ready, we'll invite them in.
Yeah.
So he was just, most kids would get so excited, hey, a GM from this club and this club wanted to see me, want to meet me. He said, nah, I'm not ready. And you only get one first impression. And when I make it, it needs to be big. So I'm not ready. Really sorry, mate. When he's ready, he'll let you know and we'll invite. So he ended up inviting everyone to see him when he was ready. But in the meantime, he employed coaches. He had quarterbacks throwing him balls. He had video sessions, gym sessions. Like he put the resources around him. Like he was the CEO of his company. He was the boss. And then he ends up playing Monday Night Football, opening game of the season. It was meant to be impossible. I remember during that journey, there was a stat. It was like 10 million kids play high school football, 6% of them go on to college football, and 1% of them go on to NFL.
Yeah.
And he never played high school football.
Ultimately, going back to the thing that you started with, the playbook, it shows how talented and how much of a freak athlete he was to get that little understanding that he was able to, sort of cram in a short amount of time to get ready to, like, understanding the game and watching it from afar for a while and just chatting to him about, some of the basic stuff. And for those people that don't watch the game or not familiar with it, like, you might have a playbook about this thick and then there's all these plays in it, but there's 5 plays within the one play. And it can change, they've got a thing called audible where he's in there to run and then he's got to change to protecting the quarterback. And then, if once he does that job, then he can, float out. So to think that little, for me, and not even being biased, it's one of the greatest sporting achievements a transition anyway, a player's ever been able to do, because completely unique to, and now you look at examples, right? Jordan Mailata's the one that stands out. He goes from under 20s at the Rabbitohs, didn't play first grade, but an NRL player that's gone over and done really well.
Yeah.
For sure, he's got a huge playbook, but at the core of it, he's just got to figure out who's trying to get to the quarterback and stop him.
Yeah.
Hainsey had so much more, like, different positions have so much more detail put on top of it. Probably, obviously, you've got the quarterback who's got to understand the most, and the running backs, they're right up there. So, crazy what he was able to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I hope even with that, there's little lessons there for me. I always like this little checklist, right? Do you know what to do? Do you have the resources to do it? And do you really want to do it? That's my 3 checklist. So in that example, Hainsey at that stage when I went with him he didn't really know what to do yet. He had the physical resources, but the biggest thing he did, he had number 3. He really wanted to do it. And the evidence was, I'm going to forgo that contract. I'm going to sacrifice everything. I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to go and rent a house. I'm going to employ some people. Like, the evidence of want, like leaving family, leaving friends, like, it wasn't all rosy. Like, it was
You could argue like even the stubbornness to think that you could pull it off is one of his best traits.
Yeah.
I remember because we went to school, so we grew up together. And I remember even just at a young age, the way you carry yourself, like you could tell he was when you, like I said, I'm very observant, see different sorts of people that have, come into my life.
Yeah.
And you can tell when someone sort of carries themselves with an alpha presence.
Yeah.
And Hainesy had that at a very young age.
Yeah.
And you could tell like going back to the stuff with Origin again, where he carried in himself in a certain way, and the joke with the story with Jordan Atkins, despite, some of the people would be critical of the way he trained, where he was at training, he'd do stuff in the game in spite of them. Like, I can still do this. Like, I don't have to do that, and I can still do this, and I can do it at a high level, and I can pull it off. And you don't think I can.
Well, when you guys were coming through school, you went to Westfields with him, right?
Yeah.
Geez, a lot of good players come out of there. I remember we heard some reports about not great stuff, like schoolboy type stuff, right? So Brian Smith sends me down one night. He said, I want you to go and watch these kids train, and I need you to tell me about this kid, Jarryd Hayne. So anyway, this crew, mate, I'm talking future Origin stars, and future internationals. There was Kristen Inu, there was Tim Manor, there was Trent Hodgkinson, there was Tony Williams. There's all these future Origin stars in this crew.
Yeah.
But in particular,
and this is when they were at Parramatta in the juniors, like
the juniors.
because we even had Israel Folau too at our school.
Yeah, right.
So Israel, Inu, and Hainesy.
Wow. This was Parramatta, and it was one night on the top field. Kevin Ivins used to run this program, and he was there, and these junior coaches, I think Matt Cameron was possibly their coach at the time.
He would have been because, I'd come through a couple of years before, and he was a part of the SG Ball system. So, I'd imagine Camo would have been there for sure.
Right. So, anyway, it finished. Jarryd was walking to the car, and I was staying back to do a session. Remember, Danny Green used to train with this boxer.
Yep.
So, Jarryd was walking to the car, and I said, mate, I need you to hang around. I need someone. Greeny's fighting for a world title. The person he's fighting does a lot of wrestling, and it's real fatiguing for him. So we're going to do some conditioning work, but I just need someone to come and basically wrestle him and throw medicine balls with him and train with him, And then I went to Greeny and said, mate, I've been instructed to test this kid out and see what he's got. So Greeny went hard, put it on him in different areas, and just little ways Greeny knows how to test someone. And Greeny come to me after, said, I don't care about any of the reports you've been getting. That kid is a competitor. He will win. And it was a great observation. So I then went back to Brian, give him all the spiel on this kid, and Brian wanted him straight in the full-time squad as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Brian never got to debut him and got criticised about that actually by not playing him that year. It was Brian's last year in 2006.
Yep.
And he left midway through the year. And then Jason Taylor took over and debuted Jarryd in his first week.
Okay.
That was Jason Taylor's big move.
Was it the Penrith game?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was Jason Taylor's big move.
Yep.
He dropped Matt Peterson, I think, and also maybe Mark Riddell might have had a week off that week for bit of behaviour type stuff.
Sounds like something Piggy.
So
happened to Piggy.
That was a big thing JT did. Was a big move by Discipline and Piggy that week, and I even think people.
Matt Peterson was a solid player.
Yeah, it's great. I love working with him. Yeah,
and so that's a huge call.
Yeah.
Now looking back on it,
and put Hainesy in. But yeah, we could talk about Hainesy forever. You mentioned your dad in and amongst there. Let's go back to some lessons you've learned, because there's a lot of parents listen too, right? Lessons learned growing up. I mean, he influenced your love of American sports, but your dad was a great Kiwi international and had a great career himself. Such a passionate Kiwi. I love working with your dad.
Yeah.
And a couple of those Kiwi camps.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your earlier days, because there's lessons there. It wasn't always easy. You mentioned earlier in the episode that you didn't play any of the junior rep footy.
Yeah.
So let's go there. Let's talk about your dad and his influence and any other influences you had.
Yeah. It's one of those things you realise as you get a little bit older, how much you are like your dad. There's sort of moments when you're younger you try to get away from it a little bit. So the example was didn't make any representative teams. Dad was always really good as well. He never pressured me. Like even though he played played NRL and he played for his country, I never really felt the pressure. He coached me at the ground here across the road. And I got his work ethic. The work ethic is one thing that's held true all the way through. And he, similar to you, very competitive, a lot of game simulated stuff. But I've always felt like relationships are really important to him as well. He loved being, I remember, being coached by him, and I wouldn't say it's a form of jealousy. I always felt like I had brothers in the team. That's the environment that I think was important to my dad. He sort of felt like
treated them like
kids.
Yeah.
Some of the guys you'll remember, even at Parramatta, as we go through to Parramatta, Wella Haraki, Jakafamasaga, a lot of these players that lived with us at the Para House, because Jarryd was another one, but some of these players, he really took it upon himself to just, not only be a coach and a mentor, a bit of a father figure to him, and there's great representation of that when he gets invited to their weddings later on in their life, and that's cool for him. But so those are some of the things that I've picked up. I was always competitive. I like to think I worked hard because of him, and things didn't always come easy and natural to me. But when I got to a pivotal point, finally getting picked and we talked about Matt Cameron before. He's doing great things here at Penrith. My first setback and one of my first memories of like, all right, I'm close here, and this was devastating, was Matt Cameron was the SG ball coach at Parramatta. Part of the squad don't make it. It's my first time being invited to anything, so I'm devastated. I thought I was close, and I was really close, because in the following year, I get invited back.
He wanted you back.
He wanted it back but I was a little bit, being 18, 17, 18-year-old, starting to feel more comfortable. People starting to recognise me, and you're starting to feel, this. Talked about the high school team that we had. Was at Westfield Sports, Blake Green, Matt Keating, all these guys have been in good systems.
What a team.
Yeah, Hainesy, Tony Williams, Hockinson, they were all the younger. They were 2 years younger than us, but we're all part of the same team. But I started to realise that people were starting to notice me, started to get a little bit more confident. And then I got to a position where I was in a really good position for 18s, was Penrith, Parramatta, and the Roosters wanted me. So got the opportunity to go to the Roosters and spend some time there. But I wanted to pave my own way.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the Roosters, and it was a little bit of like Penrith and Para, like you had your chance, and it sort of didn't work out. But it ends up coming full circle. Finish up my time at the Roosters and end up playing at Parramatta later on, and reconnect with Camo, who was my assistant coach when I make my debut. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's all a part of the journey, mate. Like if there's any young players that are watching this, coaches, who knows what Camo thought of me in the 17s? Maybe like I've got a perception of how that went. Camo's looking after 30 kids, and he's got a handpick, and maybe it's about balance or whatever. So maybe the way he views that is completely different to what I view
thinking,
it.
Yeah.
But you go through the journey, you persevere. You never know how close you are, how far. You never know where relationships may, at the time I was pissed off at Camo.
Yeah.
When I was 17, and then, grew to really admire him, and he helped me out so much at my time at Parramatta, because we'd do a lot of individual, as a lot of assistant coaches do individual video. So this is what you're doing wrong, little bits and pieces, and I learned a lot from him. So
yeah, right.
It's just like the biggest thing I think, if anyone, wherever you are, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a coach, like whether you're Camo, don't give up on a player.
Yeah.
Because you never know what might happen in 5 or 6 years' time, and it might circle back around, and everyone's journey's different. You got talented players, and you got some guys that have got to work at it. So keep working with them.
What about some tough times? Like you nearly left the NRL. What was that like? Because again, you persevered, you chipped away, you worked hard, next minute you're playing in the grand final with Manly.
So 12 was tough. 2012 was a tough year. Started off with some stuff that happened in family. Had a family member pass away at the start of the year, and it sort of derailed me a little bit at the start of the year. Then footy didn't go well, and then I got dropped, and then I got injured. So 2012 was a really tough year. It's funny, we talked about Jai Opataya before. I remember I was at a crossroads basically on my way to heading over to the Super League pretty early because I'd gone from what I thought was a pretty successful year in 2010 to not being wanted. I got signed a new 3-year deal. And then at the time, Steve Kearney was the coach and he was sort of, not feeling me there. And then like I was on the way out even with Steve and then Ricky come in. And remember when Ricky took over for just a season and he just goes, nah, you're not going to be required here. So I still had a year left on my contract.
Were you on the whiteboard?
No, I was pre-whiteboard.
Oh, pre-whiteboard.
Right. So in a way, it was a blessing in disguise. So the whole
it saved you seeing your name on the whiteboard,
mate. The boys that were involved in that, and we have a laugh about it now, right? So I always say I'm pre-board. So I'm not even good enough to make the board.
You didn't even make the board.
Sticky rocks up, calls my management at the time, and basically just said, "Look, he's not a part of our plans. He's going to play New South Wales Cup. We all know what happens."
Yeah.
And at the time, again, it's it's a frustrating year. Been injured, been dropped early in the year after playing consistent, basically debuted and then played 50 games. Yeah. So before I got dropped. Anyway, so my career was at a crossroads. It really was. And I don't know who organized. It must have been you with Jai Opataya, who's now gone on and become a world champion, and he just had a huge fight the other night. But Benny Roberts was there, Rennie.
Yeah.
And we went and trained with Jai. James Tahuna. It ended up getting into the papers. Yeah. And off the back of that, I think Tubes had found out about it.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a gig at Manly. And
I should have been on commission.
Yeah.
No, I remember it well because part of what I was doing with Jai is kind of a bit my style. It was a bit like what I did with Tamana and Jarryd.
Mm.
Part of my involvement in developing him at the time was exposing him to other athletes of other sports.
Yeah.
So obviously there was boxing influences in him, which date back generations in his family, but surrounding him with, on occasions I'd surround him with track and field athletes, rugby league players. I'd get him around meeting people, just exposing him to stuff that would influence him in a way without him thinking that it was deliberate, but there's little seeds just being planted. And that camp was for him, but it was also for you. And then just having like-minded people, all different athletes of different sports in one training camp, it was such an enjoyable little couple of days.
Yeah, it was a good weekend.
I still have vision somewhere of Rennie and him punching a bag. I'll find it for you and give it to you. They were punching a bag together, and I'll never forget it. After they finished, Jai said, "I love training with that guy." And then Rennie come to me, said, "That kid's going all the way."
Yeah.
Like it was just such good energy in a room. And I clearly remember you were at a crossroads and then there was nothing more, you couldn't have made me more happy the following year watching you play in a grand final.
Yeah.
You know? I wish I was your manager at the time. I would have been on commission.
Yeah, with that camp too, so funny little story. We actually ended up doing preseason again with Jai.
I was there.
Yeah, so we did that thing together for the weekend,
and then Manly came up.
Manly came back. So we ended up doing some training with him again, and I was watching Jai. Like I absorbed everything. I was very observant, like I said. So I watched Jai train, and the way that he hit the pads. By the way, Jai's 15, 16 at this stage.
Yeah.
Like he's a pup, and I think he'd just done something in the Olympics or some amateur fight. And no one wanted to fight him even back then because he had a really strong reputation straight away. But I remember, and you'll see it now if you watch him train, he makes these aggressive noises when he hits the pads.
Yeah.
So this is my first introduction to anything boxing. So I start mimicking him, like I'm copying him because I think that's the way you're supposed to do things. Anyway, we come back down for camp at Manly, and I'm a couple of weeks in. I laugh about it now. And because I'd already done 2 days with him, I'm thinking, all right, this is what we're doing when we're in the training camp. So I'm going, I'm ripping the pads. All the other Manly players are looking at me going, what are you doing? Calm down. You're carrying on. That like you're no boxer, but because we'd spent 48 hours doing it, and it was pretty heavy. And Rennie was a really good. Like, Rennie had a background in boxing.
Yeah.
So you could tell those two clicked straight away. I remember is it Tapu, his old man Tapu? Tap's got us in the ring, and he goes, all right, Jai's just going to work on his defense. You just try to hit him as hard as possible.
Yeah.
And I just remember going, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that Jai couldn't throw back, it was still super intimidating.
Wasn't it?
He was only 16, 17, and it was just working on defense. And, you know, as much as Tap said to rip into him, I was still throwing at 70 because I was afraid that he was just going to I was going to get him wrong and clip him, and then he was just going to bash the shit out of me.
So you could sit here now and say you have sparred.
Spar is a bit much.
You have sparred with the best fighter in the world, and he's on a trajectory, mate, to be one of the greats.
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't lost yet.
Yeah.
He's 27-0, and he's 21 by knockout.
That the intensity in which he, you know, in the lead up to the fights, I've watched him obviously after that camp, you know, watched his progress and where he's got to now. Geez, he's still got that same feeling that I felt in that ring when Taps is going, come on, I need you to rip into him. And we all took turns. We all had like 2 minutes each. Yeah. So he would just defend and not be able to throw. Yeah. Rennie would jump in. Benny, his cousin, Benny Roberts, would jump in. I'd jump in and we'd just have to go gangbusters. So I wasn't sparring. It was him just.
No, you could say I've sparred Jai because I run with that. I run with that.
Yeah,
mate.
If I'm not saying it on camera, if I'm telling someone privately, it's probably a porky and I had some GST and say it's sparring. But just in case he sees it, I've got to be honest.
Well, I had a joke with a couple of boys at the Roosters. The VAR brothers, De La Salle VAR and Xavier VAR.
Yep,
very good boxers.
I've heard of those two. Yeah,
very good. They've done some legit rounds with Jai.
Yeah. Like
D-La was Queensland heavyweight champ as an amateur. Like they're legit. And I said to him, mate, me and you have got something in common. He's like, because he's like 7 foot tall and huge. It doesn't look like there's too much in common. We've both sparred a world champion, mate. But I sparred Jai when he was 14.
Yeah. How old was he when that camp? Would he be 15, 16, do you think?
He would have been 16.
Yeah.
He qualified for the Olympics at 16, fought at the Olympics at 17 in 2012. Youngest ever heavyweight to qualify for
there you go. So he's 17 because that was the end of 2012 going into 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I remember Tap got me to sparring. It was about 14 and I'm no boxer, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind it. And when you get schooled by a 14-year-old, you just
he's a different beast. Those are a couple of things that I remember. But
I love seeing that father-son combo. I love it, mate. Those two, like there's some real famous father-son combos. You think about them, like there's Nathan Cleary and Ivan Cleary to start with. Yep. But in world sport, there's been some beauties, you know.
Yeah. The Mayweathers.
Yeah, the Mayweathers, you know. And Mayweather's like undefeated.
Yeah.
Father, son, uncle, like Jai's very similar.
It's cool to see that that's possible as well, right? You think of boxing. We've had some really good boxers. I'm not into it as much as you. I'm more of a casual boxing fan, but I understand a little bit about the history. To have a world champion from that gym in Central Coast with his family that have been a part of the journey that's a cool story.
Yeah. They were all up there on the Gold Coast last week. Benny was there, Jazz was there. There's a good crew.
That family. Again, you talk about name drops like that. So you got the Benny Roberts who we played with. On one side, he's got the Cahills, and on the other side, he's got the Opatayas.
I know, right?
It's like some good genes, some good.
He's just he's got some. There's kids coming through underneath him now. He's got a child himself. Like sign those up.
And Benny Roberts is doing a good job as well. Life after footy, teaching kids the basics of of the game and
I've seen that.
doing a really online. I think he does some clinics and that, so it's good to see Benny doing. He was a really good teammate. I really got along with Benny.
Yeah, I love what he's doing because I'm a big believer in nail these fundamentals, and he's teaching that.
Yeah,
it's not, you can't really get access to that type of coaching.
Well, again, if we're going back to teaching, there are some good guys we've worked with before, like Benny Roberts, that are more individualized as well, position specific.
Yeah.
And learning the fundamentals where you can put yourself in a position by the time they get to you, Knowlesy, and what you guys are doing at the Roosters, to have that,
yeah, that's right.
That preparation going into it is huge. So I highly recommend it for anyone. I wish I had it.
Yeah, right.
I was lucky enough to have a dad who played first grade, but if I was given that opportunity now, looking back, to work with, not just Benny because he's a mate of mine, but there's some other players, Mitchy Pearson, Todd Carney, sort of branching off and doing some stuff as well. So it's a space to watch for sure.
What else do you wish you had more of when you were younger? If you're a coach now and you're really trying to make a difference in a kid's life, and you think about it like that, is there anything more you wish you had?
For sure there's stuff that you think that you could have done better. And I think kids these days are getting, when I say kids, players in the NRL are getting a lot better. The one thing I wish I could have back is, the attention to detail that everything goes around with footy. Like I was really good once I turned up and trained, sort of let myself down in some areas. Like even some stuff now that as I've got older, sleep is huge, and your nutrition is obviously massive, and they're getting so much better at it. But in terms of coaches, the ones that coaches that put time into you. Like I remember the time, with you and the way that, especially if you're looking after a huge group.
Yeah.
Like I think it's really important for player 30 to feel as comfortable as player 1. You don't want the coaches to tell you something that you're not as well. I was really big on constructive criticism. I think that was the way that I improved. But also, I didn't want to feel like, and you never made us feel like, and the good coaches never made me feel like me and Jarryd were light years apart in talent and how we were important for the team. So I think that's and it's as easy as it is to say now. It's not easy.
It's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. So
I have my own personal philosophy that it's in words, and then I have my own vision that's locked away, articulated in words, and I have my journal that I could say at the end of every day. So my philosophy is to show I care, right? But that's care about a lot of things, that's care about the person, but it's also care about the detail in a drill, or care about the effort, or care about the character. There's so many things you care about, but showing it is the key. Because everyone knows you got to care, right? Best coaches have that.
Yeah.
But showing it, and sometimes it is like you might think you're good at it, but having that as a philosophy just keeps you aligned and on that path. So at the end of every day, I could say, did I show I care today?
Yeah.
Just tick yes or no.
Yeah. Just that reinforcement.
Yeah, but it's only later in life that I've done a bit of that work that it is articulated, but I realise it was influenced in me by some very great coaches.
Yep.
So it was, childhood even, like it's in me, but now it's articulated and it's in a journal, and it just keeps you on that path because for me, that's so important. And I love hearing that you might have felt that back then, So for any coaches out there, just understand that 20 years later, you wouldn't think, because he's hard to get, right? Justin Horo's hard to get on a podcast. Like he refuses. It's exclusive. But I feel that maybe it's because of how connected we were.
Definitely is
why you're sitting here today. Back then, I didn't do that deliberate. I didn't know you were going to be this superstar podcaster.
Again, bit of a stretch, like the sparring superstar.
But for the coaches out there, like in your own way, just be real like that. Yeah. Like just genuinely care. Like a player feels it. They know if everything you are doing is to help them and not you.
Yeah.
If you do everything about helping that person achieve what they're setting out to do, they feel that, you know?
The lessons are also not necessarily in people that you warm to. So as much as, you know, like we've got that good relationship and we've kept it now, I took lessons from times when it didn't go well and coaches that I didn't resonate with, because I was like, oh, well, this is what I liked and this is what worked for me, and then this is what he's not doing. So you can also pick up lessons from them as well. Like, not, you know, it's easy to say in hindsight, when you go through certain situations, like I said, getting dropped, sliding doors moment, go and train with Jai, which leads to, you know, my 2000, easily my worst season in professional rugby league, 2012 to my best the following year.
Well, I'm now claiming it that I saved you, because we would have been putting it in the newspaper to promote Jai, and it turns out it got you a gig at Manly.
Yeah, it did. So I remember.
So,
yeah, but like I said, the lessons in that, like even when you're going through tough times, you got to take little bits where, just say if a person or a situation, you know, was tough, or you know you didn't like that about, you know, that characteristic that they had, you absorb it and go, all right, why didn't I like that? Let's not be like that.
Yeah,
let's not be
you
like that.
Actually, learn what not to do.
Yeah.
As well. Everything is an opportunity to learn, and when you think of it like that, it's the same when you might lose a game of footy. If you flip that to, this is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
Like something happened in training, something happened in training this week, and I got excited that it happened, because in my little area that I'm coaching, it's an opportunity to learn. You know, we're in pre-season. We've got weeks and weeks to get better at it. And so and again, like I learned that over time, I guess, and watching some of Kobe Bryant content, like watching him say stuff like losing is exciting because it enables you to go away and have a look at what you need to shore up.
Yeah, what you need to improve on.
Yeah, like being influenced by either content or influenced by the people you surround yourself with. I've been really privileged to work with really good coaches and been exposed to coaches around the world of different sports, right? But people these days have an opportunity to learn through content, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm a massive believer on who you surround yourself with is who you become, but also what you listen to and what you consume is who you become.
Yeah.
So like a great example was James Fisher Harris.
Yep.
I asked him once, give us your phone, and I flicked on YouTube. And when you flick on someone's YouTube, usually it's a stream of the stuff they listen to and watch, right?
Yeah.
So there was some kids' videos because his daughter plays with his phone and watches YouTube.
You got the Paw Patrol and all that stuff that I've got on mine now.
Yeah, but then there was all this Kobe Bryant content.
Yeah, mentality.
Richie McCaw content.
Yeah.
And you could see it in him. You can see it in him. And so I'm a huge believer with these young kids out there now, who they surround themselves with and what content they consume.
Just on Fish, he's a guy that's made the change. He's been a part of the success there at Panthers. How huge is he going to be for the Warriors, do you think?
Enormous. It's priceless, mate.
I've seen you talk about him a number of times. That's why I asked, because I know he's a guy, like you can tell that he's a guy that you got a lot of respect for.
Huge respect for that guy. Doesn't say much.
They're the best ones.
But, oh, mate, players just he just sets an example that you want to follow. How to explain him? Wow. Have you spent much time with Fish?
None. Yeah. Again, very observant. I love watching like different personalities, you can tell he doesn't, they've always been my favorite guys that don't have to say. Hindy was the same.
He's hard. He's a hard man.
Yeah.
You would definitely resonate with him. Yeah. Like, you know, even with the Maori heritage and the family background you have, and you would love to spend some time with him.
Yeah.
And lead by example, but then with so much passion, like, and such a hunger to be the best. And you could see how consumed he has been with Mamba mentality of just be better in everything he does, holding teammates to account as well.
Yeah.
You know, one great story out of there was a strength coach named Harry Harris. I don't know if you ever met Harry,
No.
an older bloke full of wisdom. He come to me once, he said, Hayden, you're going to love what I just heard. I said, what do you mean? He goes, so I overheard something. And all I heard was Fisher Harris, one of the young boys had just come to the club. He goes, all I heard was, oi, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And then Harry's like, can't wait to get off the toilet to go and find out what. And he went out to Fish. He said, Fish, what did I just hear? Like, you were pretty stern with someone. What was that about? He goes, oh, no, so-and-so just took his strapping tape off and threw it near the bin, and it didn't go in the bin, and it just landed next to it, and he left it there. So I just told him.
Love that.
You know?
I love that.
But having that presence, but even the way he delivers it,
yeah.
Oi, we don't do that.
We don't do that. No one else around, just them two.
Just two blokes, two guys. Can you imagine that young guy?
Yeah. Well, and then you create the culture, you set the standard. And that, I don't know who that young guy is, but I'd imagine if someone else does something like that in a couple of years, and that's how you create culture, right?
Yeah. The kid had just come from the Dragons. And that was the path Fish was on. He was on that. He didn't have the title as leader. Well, he did in the leadership group. He didn't have the title as captain.
Yep.
But that'd be the same type of way he would say it on the field. If you're not in a kick chase with him, it'd be like, hey, not here.
Yeah, that's the thing I appreciate the most about him from afar. Watching his game is he does all the little things right.
Yeah,
and when you've been around in the game long enough and you know how hard they are, and in a way you pride yourself on doing them because you might not be as talented to have the talent and still do those things. That's what I think. That's what makes Penrith great. And
you'd love watching him captain his country. I mean, now he does hold the title as leader.
Yeah.
The passion in him leading his country.
They call it the mana, you know, being there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell it means a whole lot to him. So going back home must be cool for him.
Yeah, he'll be huge. It'll be interesting how he juggles. He's trying to balance family life now with family and kids to the whole country wanting a piece of him, the media wanting a piece of him. Like, he'll be the face of everything. It'll be interesting how that challenge for him, because he when he was at his club at the Panthers, he was obviously a leader, but kind of under the radar of all that stuff.
Yeah.
There'll be new expectation, being a high-paid recruit and all that stuff.
Shawnee moving on, Tohu just retiring.
All that will be interesting to watch and observe. So we're talking leadership now. Like, who are the best leaders you've played with? I mean, you've got a great relationship with DCE.
Yep.
Who?
DCE wasn't a leader though.
No?
Not when I was there. It was different. I had a younger DCE.
Where he's captain now.
Yeah,
right?
he's captain. I'm so proud of him. We become really good mates. We talked a little bit about, pre-pod about how our relationship's gone from playing together. Even though I always found this funny that Kieran and Daly, by the time I'd got to Manly, had already won a premiership, were already stars at their position. But they didn't say anything in video because we had strong leadership at Manly. Guys, the main guy who I always talk about so fondly is a guy called Jason King. King was a little bit like Fisher Harrison in a way, where he didn't have to necessarily say a whole heap. He had a presence about him, but he was really specific with what he said. He didn't, he was our captain. The co-captains at the time, the first year we get there, Jason King was injured and Jamie Lyon was the other one. And you know what Killer was like? He was always reluctant to be the captain and talk to media and all that stuff as it was. So it was really cool to see those guys by the time I got to Manly. That was sort of my – and Nathan and the two Nathans, Kalis and Highmarsh, were the same. And that's why I always found they were the best leaders. Yeah. Didn't necessarily have to tell a whole heap. You could tell, again, being observant, you could tell people that wanted the role, wanted to be the captain, wanted to talk. Yeah. And there was always a role for that. There's always a time for people that would talk, but I always more resonated with the harder, wider, specific leaders.
Yeah.
Not the, rah-rah generic, let's get into them and all that,
Yeah.
sort of cliche stuff that you hear through footy.
Yeah.
Jason King always had a real specific message. Super smart too. Like, I think he had a law
very
degree.
intelligent guy.
Yeah. So he was one of my favourites, mate. And then Daly, like I said, going back to Daly, at that time he was just yes sir, no sir.
Right.
So Kieran were the older boys ran the team. They ran the team when we're on the field.
Yeah.
But anything in and around how we are, how we train, how we behave was all the older boys, the Stewart brothers,
Yeah.
Watmo, Jamie Lyon, all those sorts of guys.
Well, that's a great point. That leadership, everyone's on a different journey. Like DCE's been on a journey.
Yeah.
And he obviously led by position. You have to lead if you're the halfback.
Yeah.
So he obviously led by position at that stage. But as time's gone on, his journey, he's learned, he's evolved, and he's next level now as a captain,
like what he's been able to do at Queensland is, been super proud of the run that he's done there. But
don't you dare talk to me about Queensland.
Queensland, I can't wait to. There's a story that maybe we can't tell here that I can't wait to have a chat to him about. But I remember me and Daly become really close when I was overseas, and I remember a conversation we had about leadership and where he's at in the team, and they'd gone through a tough period back at Manly.
Okay, and
he's like, I'm sort of, I hope he doesn't mind telling me, but at the time he was struggling with the playing group. He's like, I need a bit of help. And the only guy that was sort of from the really successful times at the back end of 2008, 9, 10 that had been through was Georgie Tafua.
Right.
But Georgie he was another guy that led by actions, and it didn't come natural to him. He's like, I need Georgie's help. Like, I think Georgie's the guy that's going to help me out with this. We've got a completely new playing group. We got younger Polynesian kids that are coming through. Georgie's a prime example, but he doesn't it's not natural to him to lead. So
it's not natural to a lot of people.
Yeah. I think he worked on Georgie heaps with it.
Yeah.
And it helped him out. They went through a lean period and then he came out the other side. Those two are super close as well. Like, we're all close together, but that's just another example of identifying.
I don't know DCE, but I felt at some point he's made a decision to give himself up to the team and make others better. Early in his career, it might have been he's looking after. He was a bit of a star, But I found, and even you could hear it and you could see it. I found like it looks like he's just been trying to make others better. I don't know if that's right or not, but
I think
even when he went into the Queensland, early on in the Queensland stuff, it never felt like they loved him. But now they love him, which means he's loved them. He's given to them. He's like, players now love him. I don't think they used to. I could be wrong. You played.
Yeah. And look, for sure, that'll have to be for him to tell the story. But I think for sure he had a realization that, once he was given the captaincy, that this is really tough and I can't do this by myself.
Yeah, right.
So like identifying a guy like George Tafua, who he got along with really well and could help him with his leadership. And again, like we joked around about it, but just right at the start of it, talking about Jamie Lyon, Killer didn't want to be a leader. Like he didn't want to be a captain, in my opinion. We used to joke around. He was very jovial, but when it did come time and he had to switch on, he could switch on, and the best ones can do that. But it's not natural. It's not easy. Even though I'm talking about it now with some guys that I appreciated, it's not my personality. Yeah. I was never that guy. I was a guy that liked to bring people together, but I don't think I ever could have been a captain because it's just not for everyone.
Yeah. There's a whole series that I plan to do with different leaders, so I might have to talk to DC.
Yeah.
That's if he still talks to me.
Yeah,
You'll have to talk to him about that Origin.
Yeah.
Mate.
Yeah.
No,
Worst Queensland team of all time. He'll love it, mate. He would love, like when it comes to stories like that, you'll be able to get him in. And
the story we want to share right now, we should save. It's more.
You save it for him.
It's more for your type of potty.
Yeah. No, if you ever get the opportunity, you've got to tell it with him, because I can't wait to call him after this, because you obviously told me before, but I'm sure he's a guy, like he's for the the right people, the right form of content, he's definitely more open to doing stuff like this.
Yeah, right. I bumped him in England. They were training in Manchester, the Aussies, and I had my son with him, and he was the first one. There's some there that I'm very close with in that Aussie team that obviously were very welcoming, but mate, he didn't have to be. And he came straight over, shook hands, welcomed my son there. Yeah, he's a good fella, but the story we want to share was a bit more heated.
Yeah, yeah. And again, same with me, with mum and dad. Like that's normally when I know there's a different level of connection, different level of friendship. When mum and dad speak highly of you,
yeah,
that means a lot. Similar to what him chatting to Owen.
Yeah, yeah.
When your mum says like, oh, after a couple of years you've been playing, like, oh, Daly's really nice, and like because the example would be, how a lot of the families wait outside the locker room sometimes, and players filter out. Daly would always make sure he say hello to my parents, and I'm not even there. I'm still getting changed. I'm inside.
Right. So your parents talk highly.
That's the sort of person he is, and then that's why the relationship. Jamie Burer, same thing. Yeah. Tommy Simons, like those are my close mates from Manly. So
good guys.
Yeah, good guys. That means a lot to you, right? Like when your family speak highly of people. So
yeah, yeah, mate. I could talk to you all day. Seriously, the name drops.
We've got some good ones,
mate. We could not stop talking about guys, but I do like it because when you talk about the character traits of different people, there's lessons there. There's lessons there of people that may just revisit that Hayne story and get inspired. There's little coaching lessons there that someone will go, you know what, that's what I love about the podcast thing now and about content. Well, that's what that logo is. You might not realize the handshake. It's meant to be. You might even hear me at the start say, welcome team.
Yeah.
When I first started doing it, I thought about, I want to treat listeners like I would a team.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like in a team environment, I might use Tamana Tahu to inspire you, or I might use Rani Matua to inspire Jai.
Yeah.
It's the same with the podcast. How can I help a listener by you inspiring them with a story? Yeah. So I've kind of and the handshake bit is all around, in a team environment, how can I help a mate is if everyone on the team is thinking, how is this action going to help someone else? Like a support run, for example. How can I help someone else? That team is powerful. So I've always kind of done that with the potty.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I help someone else? So it sounds a bit weird at the start. I go, welcome team, because in my weird little mind, I'm trying to think, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have a team of listeners that feel like they could just feel it when we talk, that I'm actually only doing it. One coach may have got a lesson from you today, but he goes and influences 20 kids at the park.
Yeah.
One of those 20
it's a cool
kids.
Space, isn't it?
One of those 20 kids years later becomes a coach that helps other coaches. Like it's a cool space, I'm not as entertaining as you and mate, I probably could do more clickbaity stuff, maybe.
Yeah. No one's as entertaining as Willie Mason. He and the beauty of it too, and we talked about this as well a little bit. You don't know what's going to hit. You don't know what's going to resonate with someone. It's a cool space, and it's ever evolving. I've gone into podcasts sometimes with guests or topics, and I'm going, this is going to kill it. People are going to love this, and the views aren't as high. And then there's been other times where we're just talking like this, having a conversation. Someone takes a bit from it, or it becomes viral, and it just goes crazy. So you just never know. It's all about storytelling. You're doing a great job, Knowlesy, and I've loved watching your stuff over the last couple of years. So nice to know that you sort of think the same about what we're doing.
I love it, mate.
At levels.
I love seeing what you do because the sky's the limit. I'd be interested to know where you see it going. Do you have a vision for where you're headed?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and this might not be the right thing to say, but no, not at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of going with the flow. It's a bit how I've lived my life, like with footy. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm sort of competitive and want to be good at what I do, but I'll probably have to sit down and have a proper think about it soon, because it is getting to the point now. You start bringing businesses on board and people that the followership, like people that follow your journey. So I don't know. I just think it's a cool space. And I never expected to be in this life after footy. I didn't think someone with my level of play. I'm super proud of my career, but when I was playing, there was no one with my career, 100, just over 120 games, been dropped a number of times, that was in the space of media. So I didn't think it was even attainable.
Yeah.
So now I'm enjoying it. I'm staying in the moment, and I guess we'll have to see, where it takes it. But
well, a lot of people would look at, usually they were superstars that got jobs in the media, right?
Yeah.
In fact, there'll be some superstars out there that haven't been able to get a job in the media that would have some sort of jealousy around, what's Justin Horo doing,
Yeah, for sure.
But they don't know the backstory
of
how hard you've worked and chipped away, made sacrifices the same way you did in your career. Like, people don't get it. They're going to see you one day broadcasting like major shows. You'll probably be doing American sports shows. Like, you will be leading a show one day where people will go, how did that happen? They don't quite see the journey.
Yeah. And that's that imposter syndrome, I think I feel sometimes when I'm doing this stuff. I think it's good. Like, I lean on it as well. Like, there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah.
But it keeps you and one thing with content that is different from the rugby league career is you try to remove yourself as much from external criticism as possible when you're playing, because you don't want it to flood your mind, and you can be overanalyze yourself and take it into a game. But you get immediate feedback. So if you're your authentic self and you're doing content and you're detailed, then the audience will let you know straight away. They'll let you know if you're taking shortcuts. They'll let you know if you're not, across the game, if you've got a bad opinion. So as much as like I said, I'm never going to be Willie Mason. I'm never going to be, Braithen Astor hosting Fox or Matty Johns or
why not?
But if I just tell my story and have my opinion to the best of my ability, then that's all I'll do. Like, that's the journey I'm on.
I love everything you just said, but I totally disagree when you said I'm never going to be Matty Johns. Like, I actually think the sky's the limit.
As in, I'm never going to have their career, as in the footy career, get to be, so I can speak on those situations.
Yes,
but if I just talk about my journey and what I've been through, there's clearly people that resonate with that.
Yeah,
and I think people like in Australia, we got tall poppy syndrome, but we also love an underdog story, and I feel like I sort of fall more into the underdog story when it comes to content.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, so. Keep chipping away. We'll see what happens. A big year coming up, and got some big plans. So,
well, mate, we will finish, but I will stick there just quickly, because we did a great episode with Nathan Cleary talking about FOPO and fear of people's opinions that can paralyze you when you're playing. You're actually saying you take a bit of all that feedback now as part of learning. But there still has to be a little bit of, I don't care about people's opinions. There has to be, but you're actually saying you're using a bit of it to make you better.
Yeah, I draw on it because one thing that I've used with the content, if people aren't familiar with our show, we really engage with our audience. So I rely on our audience to come up with some of the stuff that we talk about on the show. That's what I reckon has been a crucial part to, other podcasts that we do. We listen to what the audience is saying. Now, there are some people that come on and just, want to antagonize me and want to be, keyboard warriors. You just brush them. You don't. I've now, because of the footy career, been able to go, all right, that guy's just trying to get a reaction. I'm not going to give it to him. But I've had people criticize, certain things or takes that I've had or whatever. Okay. And I try to think, all right, why do they think that? And then, all right, maybe if I reply in this way, use it in the show, have my say, and then I've had them come back full circle and go, okay, that's what you were thinking as well, So you can draw on it. Like, this is an ever-evolving space that we're in.
If I have issues in this space, you're my coach, right? we're going to flip the roles. You need to mentor me and coach me in this space.
Yeah, we're still alone in Knowles.
I've stayed pretty authentic around why I do it, but it is growing and that type of stuff will happen. It's still a little passion project, really. You know, I have my day job. But
pretty good day job too.
Yeah. But I love everything about what I'm doing, but that's interesting. Yeah, we're going to talk off air about that.
Yeah.
Mate, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, mate.
We need a part 2, part 3.
Let's do it.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Legend.